அது அனலாக் தானே. ஸ்மார்ட் வாட்ச் யார் வச்சிருக்கீங்க? அங்க வைக்க கூடாது, பேக் போயிடணும். செம் எக்ஸாம் படி வச்சுக்கோங்க, சரியா?
சாப்பிடல.
அப்படியா? பிஜியா எது பண்ணா? ரோட்ல நடந்தா ரோட்ல தான் நின்று
ஓப்பனா இருக்குது அப்படின்னு
போன் பண்ண ஞாபகப்படுத்த
என் சி
பாதி யூஸ் பண்ணாங்க, ஒரு ஆளுமே போறாரு பாதி யூஸ் பண்ணாங்க.
காமிங்க நம்பர் சொல்லுங்க டக்குன்னு.
4741
எத்தனை பேர் இருக்கீங்க? 3 பேர் தான் இருக்கீங்க. எனக்காக தான் பத்திரிக்கை ஆரம்பிச்சுன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். பரவாயில்ல. இப்பமே எப்படின்னா ஒரு பேப்பர் அப்பா பேப்பர் அடிச்சுட்டு பறந்துட வேண்டியது.
இங்கதான் இறக்குவாங்களோ, நான் அங்க போகணும்னு நினைச்சிட்டு இருக்கேன். ஜஸ்ட்
Good morning, everyone. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our 7-day national level online faculty development program on paradigm shifts in the emergent English literary discourses. A popular word says, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. Let's prepare our beautiful future by hearing useful lectures in these 7-day faculty development program. Let's begin our session with a word of prayer, because prayer aligns ourselves with the purposes of God. To align ourselves and to seek His purpose, I request Dr. J. Mary Stella, Assistant Professor of English, to lead us in prayer.
Let us bow our heads and put ourselves in the holiness of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Almighty and ever-loving God, we glorify and adore your name. You have showered us with so many blessings, and your presence continuously remind us of your faithfulness and guidance. Our secretary, convener, coordinator, and organizing secretary committee members. We humbly ask you to shower our speaker today of your greatest inspiration so that he may share the most of his knowledge, his field of expertise, and to his respective knowledge, experiences, put into practice what we may learn today. Your Holy Spirit will lead a meaningful and successful seminar. We ask all these things in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Stella ma'am, for leading us in prayer. Alfred Lord Tennyson says, Bible reading is an education in itself. To begin our session with spiritual education, I invite Ms. G. Vansi Trinitial, Assistant Professor of English, to read few verses from the Bible.
Today Bible reading portion has been taken from Psalm 46 verses 1 to 7. Psalm 46 verses 1 to 7. God is our refuge and strength, and ever-present help him in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though its waters rose and foam, and the mountains quirk with its surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall, God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall, he lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us, the God of Jacob is our fortress. Here ends the lesson.
Thank you, Vansi ma'am. Small cheer and great welcome makes a merry feast. As academicians, we are all here for the merry intellectual feast, and to officially commands our program, I invite Dr. Y. Pramila Anbarasi, Assistant Professor of English, to deliver the welcome address.
The Bible says, every good and perfect gift comes from the Lord. A blessed Monday morning wishes to one and all gathered here. Indeed, I am happy and privileged to propose the welcome address today. I praise God Almighty for His immense grace and favor in conducting this online 7-day faculty development program. I sincerely greet our Secretary, Mr. S. Prem Kumar Rajasingh, and our Principal in charge, Dr. R. G.V. Esther Ratnakumari, who are behind us in all our endeavors. I heartily welcome The resource person of today's session, Dr. Jehoson Jiresh, Assistant Professor, Department of English and Cultural Studies, Christ deemed to be University, Bengaluru. He is an ardent researcher and a sincere and devoted teacher. We welcome you, sir, to this august gathering. I cordially welcome all the participants of today's session. I assure you, this session will open up a new avenue for your research. Last but not the least, I welcome the convener, coordinator, organizing secretaries, and the members of staff who are with us in arranging this program and making it a grand success. Once again, I welcome you all.
Thank you, Anvarasi ma'am, for your warm welcome address. Next, I would like to introduce our esteemed chief guest for today's session, Dr. Jehoson Jiresh. It is our distinct honor to welcome Dr. Jehoson Jiresh, a distinguished educator of international repute, to grace this occasion as our chief guest. Dr. Jehoson Jiresh is an assistant professor in the Department of English and Cultural Studies at Christ deemed to be University, Bengaluru. His academic journey marked by excellence. He is an alumni of prestigious institutions like the American College and Madurai Kamaraj University. A prolific researcher, Dr. Jiresh has made significant contribution to the field of English language teaching, learning-oriented language assessment, and the intersections of literature and culture. His keen interest in the impact of technology on education is evident through his effective and ethical use of AI in education and research. His passion for exploring the nuance of language and literature is further reflected in his research on literary theories and critical reading. Dr. Jiresh is a very dedicated scholar. At present, he is actively pursuing a second PhD in English literature. He is also the first Indian recipient of prestigious 2024 TOEFL English Language Researcher. His expertise extends beyond border as evidenced by his participation in MOCCs offered by prestigious institutions like IOWA, State University, and Harvard. Beyond his academic pursuits, Dr. Jiresh is a dedicated educator who has inspired countless students. His commitment to fostering a love for learning is exemplified by his numerous workshops and lectures on English language teaching, literary theories, and cultural studies. We are truly fortunate to have him share his wisdom and expertise with us today. With a heart full of gratitude and happiness, we welcome you, sir, and the platform is yours. It's your time, sir. We welcome you.
Good morning. Good morning, scholarly audience. I hope my voice is audible and also the screen is visible to the participants. If you can confirm, I will go ahead with the talk. Is the voice audible, organizer?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, and screen is visible as well. Yeah. The screen sharing is visible, sir?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning again. I thank the organizers, Masters Margoshes College, for giving me this opportunity to be a resource person in the 7-day workshop that discusses most of the emerging trends or theoretical approaches in the field of literary studies. On the same note, I also thank mm, my guidance supervisor, Dr. John Shaker, for referring my name to this particular FDP. It's always an honor to be acknowledged by your teacher, and word of thanks and also appreciation to the organizers for meticulously organizing this particular FDP, and for the participants who have taken time to be part of this FDP so that they can flourish well in their pursuit for academic excellence and continuous professional development. So these words I start my presentation. So as you can see, new materiality and infrastructure are critical tools for the AI age literary analysis is my specific title for the talk. So this, from what you would have listened to yesterday when I was part of the session, this can be viewed as an offshoot of post-human discourses, where human beings are not the only entities that control or take forward the activities of the world. There are many other agents. There are many other agents that are important in taking forward the activities of the world, and they have blurred the boundaries between what is human and non-human. And even in that case, the human endeavors, human pursuits are influenced by the technological change around us. It's not a contemporary phenomenon. Even from the time when we started making cooked food or when we used weapons for hunting and for the livelihood purposes, since then, or even before that, it is the technological intervention or the scientific pursuits that inform and shape human existence, so that we can start with a broader understanding that culture is influenced by technology, or culture is something which cannot be understood without a technological intervention. When I make this statement, I also give you a kind of a perspective that there is nothing which is uninfluenced by technology. It can be a kind of a continuation to what I spoke about in last year's FTP. But then, even if you have not attended it, it is not going to be a problem. It was per se on post-humanism. Now that I'm going to deal with the two kind of branches of post-human inquiry, new materiality and critical infrastructure studies, which further deepen the idea of how non-human entities shape our discourses, our life choices, or our thought processes navigating in this particular context. So when I make the statement that there is nothing in this world which is uninfluenced by scientific intervention, we can think about this particular statement throughout this 1.5 hour session. And by the end of it, during our discussion, we can come up with questions, either complementing it or contesting the idea that there is nothing which is uninfluenced by scientific intervention or technology. Even for us to understand certain things around us, to believe in certain things, there is a technological agency which plays a very vital role, which is something that we should be aware of, is the proposition. So this understanding would make us understand new materiality and critical infrastructure better.
Sir, sir,
yes.
Sorry for the interruption. Sir, your voice level is very low. Could you please check that?
Okay. Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you are audible, but the voice level is low. It's feeble, so we are unable to catch your words.
Okay. Or maybe it should be because of the.
I think if you talk louder, it will be.
If I go in this uh, volume, this is fine. If I continue speaking this way, is this fine?
Okay, sir. Okay.
This is fine, sir. Okay.
Oh, fine, sir.
Sir, you can
Yeah.
little bit raise your voice, can little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Probably the problem with my mic. I'll cut off this mic and use the open audio. That would solve the problem.
Is this audible, ma'am? Is this fine? If I talk like this, it's fine.
Not it, sir. Not it.
Fine. Come a little closer. Is this fine if I'm continuing with this volume? Sir, can you please let me know if it's fine?
Okay, sir. Fine, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the contents of this session, I'll repeat whatever in a nutshell whatever I discussed. I made a proposition that, or a statement that, nothing in this world or nothing in our cultural interactions are uninfluenced by technological change. By which I mean scientific interventions, even to understand, even to believe in certain traditional ideas, conventional ideas. We need an agency which is scientific nature, which has technological intervention, scientific pursuits. Are important, it is inevitable to understand. So I repeat that statement that there is nothing in this cultural context that is uninfluenced by technology. There is nothing in this cultural context that is uninfluenced by technology or scientific pursuits. I just made a statement that you can think about it. By the end of the session, during the discussions we have, we can debate on this, either to complement or contest this particular idea. So with these words, I start the session. The contents of the session will be overview of the session's outcomes, and then introduction to new materialism and critical infrastructure studies, significance and relevance in the contemporary context. Why is it significant? Why is it important to make such readings of literary texts, that is using new materialism and critical infrastructure? And then the key theories of both new materialism and critical infrastructure. And the important section of this talk would be, I plan to kind of demonstrate how literary texting is done. I plan to demonstrate how literary. 1 minute. I'm sorry for the interruption. I still get messages that my voice is not audible. Maybe I'll find a different place on campus. Give me a minute or two. I'll find a classroom where it's possible for me to have a silent ambience and speak. Give me a Okay, I think I can be little louder in this space than the cubicle I had because of the confinement of people around. I was not able to be louder. Please confirm once if my voice is loud and clear so that I continue with this.
Yes, sir, definitely. It is very nice now.
This is fine, no? So I made a mistake of it's the first time I deliver a talk from that cubicle. Usually I go home. Since this is working time, I was not able to go home. So that was the reason, and people around, I was not able to be louder. So this should do. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. I'll go ahead with the planned presentation. Okay, so these are the contents of this particular session, wherein the important part is to demonstrate how a new materialist or a critical infrastructure study is made using literary texts. And what does it mean to the Indian context? That's because it's something which I added last night after listening to Dr. John Shaker, that we do not simply consume Western pedagogical or Western theoretical approaches without Indianizing them, because we have a tendency to go with the buzzwords. Indian academia or humanities in general, we have a tendency to go crazy over buzzwords that are new, and then without going deep into it or without making it locally appropriate modules, we tend to do it as a kind of a mandatory service. That's because it is quite popular in the Western world, so that I should be doing this in my part of the world as well. So the importance is in finding where it is locally appropriate. Why is it important to read it in my cultural context? These are the things that is more important. And so what is the significance of new materialism and critical infrastructure studies in the Indian literary cultural context is also important. And few Indian texts, contemporary Indian texts, how can we make a new materialist reading? I would just give you a starting point with which you can continue your thinking and reflecting later as well. And finally, the strategies to hone new materialist. And 1 minute. Yeah. The strategies to hone new materialist and critical infrastructure reading. How a critical reader, a literary reader, should make new materialist reading. What are all the prerequisites that we should have? What are all the skill sets one should have in terms of making new materialist and culture, critical infrastructure reading of literary texts? And I'm sorry here, the abbreviation of new materialism should be NM. By mistake, it is NH. Please correct it when you read it. Okay, new materialism and critical infrastructural studies. So the outcomes of this session. By the end of this session, we try to understand the core principles of new materialism and critical infrastructure, learn how to apply these frameworks to literary analysis, focusing on materiality and infrastructure in literary texts, discover key theories and concepts that inform these approaches, analyze text through the lens of materiality and infrastructure. That is what I told you, demonstrating how we make such readings using materiality and infrastructure. And then finally, the strategies for integrating these approaches into a teaching, research, teaching, learning, and research, particularly in the context of AI. So how do we, when AI is constantly changing literary production and consumption, how do we integrate these approaches in our teaching, research, and particularly in the context of artificial intelligence? So these are the outcomes of this session. So, okay. So since the background talk I gave, a brief talk I gave on new materialism and infrastructure was not so audible, I may give you a brief gist of what I was talking about in the first couple of slides. That is, yesterday you would have heard about the post-human approach, wherein the boundaries between human and the non-human is constantly blurred, constantly reinformed. The technology around us shapes human existence, and our thought process, our cultural evolution is informed by technology and non-human entities around us as well. These two theories of study, or these two frameworks for literary reading, that is new materialism and critical infrastructure, are kind of offshoots of post-humanism, wherein it shifts the focus from the human-centered approach to non-human forces in our cultural, social, and literary context. So I started with a statement that none of our cultural aspects are uninformed by technology or uninformed by scientific pursuits. There is nothing with us or within us without technological influence. This can be a very strong statement, but it is debatable. And by the end of this talk, I want the audience to reflect on it, maybe contest it as well, or maybe you can find insights that would support this claim. But both these theoretical frameworks, that is new materialism and critical infrastructure, gives emphasis on things around us which are non-human, yet has an impact on our cultural context or cultural progression. So the importance of these two ways of thinking is to understand that there is something beyond what we believe in as the final, what we believe in as the whole. There is something beyond our conclusive, absolute inferences that we make about things that happen around us, or how we fathom things around us, how we fathom an idea like fate or destiny, or is it uninfluenced by technology, or technology is something that influences all our life choices, all our life progression. It's not only from after, we cannot define the boundary as it's before technology and after technology. When we say the world before and after technology, we understand technology from a very simplistic perspective. Technology is part of human narratives from the time when we started eating cooked food, or when we started using weapons for our livelihood. Even since then, it is technology that influences human evolution. So we cannot simply say there's a world before technology and after technology. Rather, technology was part of us. Human questioning, scientific inquiry was part of us, and the levels in which that has evolved depends on the previous level. Some questioning done in the previous generation, from that platform we question to the next level, and we go to the level where we are in now. We reach the level where we are in now. So new materialism as a theoretical approach emphasizes on the agency of matter and non-human forces, that is, things that are non-human yet has an influence on cultural, social, and literary context. It can be animals, it can be a chemical that is used in laboratory, it can be a laboratory object. Laboratory as a space where human and non-humans interact is one of the key features of new materialism. Any material which is considered non-human has got an agency. It has got an agency. We may say it acts, depends on human will. Rather, it's not something it acts only because of human will. It should be viewed as human will is amplified, or human will is achieved. Human will is achieved using these matters, which has an agency on its own. And number two, critical infrastructure examines the hidden and overlooked systems. Simple systems like data, algorithms, networks, road, right? The way in which our houses are built, how they underpin human life, how they shape culture, society, and literature. Roads, for that matter, how important they are in ensuring upward social mobility. having good road connections, connecting all cities, towns, and villages. What does it mean to people who are living in a particular remote space of this nation? If there is no road, what is that they miss out? What is that they gain? Right? Or what is the flip side of having a road? Yesterday we were also talking about depleting natural resources for the sake of constructing roads. In that case, what is the alternative? We maybe some statements that we make in this session would not be acceptable at the very face value of it. But then the question of, is there anything which is completely natural, or is there anything which is completely absolute, is a question of critical inquiry. Because even if the world can afford things that we consume in an artificial sense, say without what is traditionally considered natural, if it can afford to everyone accessibly, affordably, and also in a healthy way, then it should not be a problem. It should not be a problem. But the problem is the layered differences we have in terms of accessibility and affordability. And the crony capitalism coming into play when it comes to mass production, how the standards are lowered. That's the reason why we fall back to something called, we need natural resources. We need natural resources. But the glorification of nature also has two sides. What is that? The most cruel thing, or the most irrational or brutal thing that humans can encounter is nature. Right? We may say that we are the ones who are depleting it. That's the reason why we have tsunamis, we have volcano eruptions and all that. But nature per se is crude. Nature per se is barbaric. It does not expect a kind of glorification or deification that we do, or anything for that matter does not expect glorification or deification. Right? Nature, why I'm saying nature can be cruel is, you just imagine, right, a cow giving birth to a calf. The moment the calf reaches the ground, there are 4 lions waiting to prey on it. Right? And the cow that just gave birth to a calf, fights its life to defend it. It is a natural phenomenon. It is a natural phenomenon. If we have been so natural, the way in which we glorify nature, we are not civilized. We won't be having such interactions at this point in time. Nature is the most cruel thing, or and it is kind of uncontrollable if not for technology. To an extent, with technology, we foresee weather conditions. We may claim that it goes wrong, this and that, but then it's better than what it was before. Right? So turning towards completely natural can be disastrous. But at the same time, the commodity-oriented technological intervention could lead to skewed development. One part of the world growing and the other in poverty and penury. So what's the way ahead? How to democratize access to technology? How to democratize access to infrastructure? How to democratize access to materialism should be our inquiry at this point in time. So the importance of roads, data, and centers that underpin human life, how they shape culture, society, and literature becomes part of critical infrastructure studies. So here are the key people from new materialism. Karen Barad, the work Meeting the Universe Halfway, wherein the idea of agential realism, matter has agency. The idea of agential realism is her contribution, and humans are entangled with the material world. Without the material world and its agency, none of our pursuits or existence can happen independently. There is no independent existence of human being possible without our interactions with such agencies and matters around. Number two, Jane Bennett, the vibrant matter. Matter is not inert, it has vitality and form of agency. No matter is something which is considered less functional or dysfunctional. It plays a function, it has vitality, and it also has a form of agency, is the discourse propounded by Jane Bennett. And the final one, Rosie Braidotti, the post-human, explores the post-human condition, considering how humans are enmeshed with technology and non-human entities. So to make this clear, we should understand certain phenomenon, how without technology, our life is not possible. So when I say technology, I repeat, let us not consider confine technology only to the mobile phones. Even the pens that we use for writing, the bottle that we use to hold water, to contain water, is technology. To going further, even human being is a technological gadget, because of the very fact that we have started eating cooked food, wherein the idea of natural is converted, because by having fire you need some technology to create fire and also preserve it, and it was a skill that was taught to people long back, and it changes the natural essence of something that you get from nature. That's the reason why we started becoming less natural from the day when we started eating cooked food, is the proposition. So we are also becoming technologically integrated, because, say, for example, if someone asks us what is 1 plus 1, we say 2. But if the number is large and the digits are large, we take the help of a calculator, wherein our cognition is distributed. So that's the point in time where we understand we are not something who can stand on our own. Rather, we need technological intervention or cognition that is received through other matters. It's also important to build our ideas, to build our future, and also for the pursuit that we do in our academic and personal lives. So the boundaries are blurred. That's the idea. The boundaries are blurred. We cannot say this is human and this is not. And the last 10 years, if you can see, the mobile phones have reached a saturation point. And the next thing would be placing a brain-computer interface that is attached to the brain, which would do the job of what a mobile phone does today. And we may have religious reasons or so to say that this is something which goes against traditional beliefs, but it is already there. It's already there, and those are assumptions. And it helps people with paralyzed people because of accidents to use computers, and it's already been used. Right now, the question is how to ensure ethicality, making it accessible and affordable to everyone. Otherwise, it becomes a possession of those who can afford, and they will easily have an edge over others who do not use brain computer interface. So this holds good for any technology. Those who can afford, they use technology and they exhibit their skill sets in a different level. Those who cannot afford, or those who are not aware of technology, they put a lot of hard work, yet they are not able to exhibit their skill sets on par with those who use technology. Is an the truth that we understand. So it is said and done that with technology, the non-human entities also play a very vital role in human pursuits. So critical infrastructure, Susan Leigh Starr, The Ethnography of Infrastructure, theorized about how infrastructure is invisible until it breaks down. What I understand from this particular idea is that what is considered infrastructure to us will not be considered as infrastructure to the next generation. Because a mobile phone would be ordinary to them. But for people who saw a landline phone, was used to it for 15, 20 years, and then saw the mobile phone seems to be a technology. And for us, which when we are used to a technology or an infrastructure that aids to human life, it becomes so part of our landscape that we don't think it is something which is invented and kept, right? Say, for example, mobile phones for the children who are born after 2010 or so, right? They don't see that as an invention inherently. It's part of their ecosystem. It's part of their landscape. And suddenly, if it breaks down, they understand that it was an infrastructural privilege that they have, right? This holds good for any privileges that we have. Unless until it breaks down, we don't understand that as a privilege, right? So infrastructure is invisible. The roads, when we speak about, we may not think that it is so important for a society to come up in life unless the road is blocked someday, unless there is a natural calamity that stops us from traveling from one place to the another. Unless there is a breakdown, that infrastructure is not viewed as an infrastructure. It is viewed as an entity which is part of the landscape, which is part of the ecosystem. So there are technologically built infrastructure which is embedded in our landscape, which we may consider that as a natural phenomenon. A road to a village is a natural phenomenon today. It is naturalized, rather, we can say, right? So unless it breaks down, we don't realize that it was part of our infrastructure. We don't realize that it is a technological intervention on our infrastructure. Brian Larkin, The Politics and Poetics of Infrastructure. Infrastructure as a cultural object that mediates power and aesthetics, right? This can be viewed from the perspective of cultural capital by Pierre Bourdieu, who talks about the non-financial assets of a family, right? Apart from the financial assets, what are all the non-financial things that adds to the capital of a person? It can be the education of the parents, the languages spoken in the household, whether they are monolingual, bilingual, or multilingual, or the region in which the child is brought up. Giving 1 crore to someone who comes from a village in the southern part of India and giving 1 crore to a person living in the streets of Bombay Stock Exchange is entirely different. Their perspective of using that 1 crore would be influenced by the place from where they come from, the people they interact with, right? Even today, we would have heard about, no, if people are investing in stock markets or shares, there is a tendency among conventional thinking people that it is a kind of gambling. It is a sin. One should not invest in stock markets. Such thoughts are found in conventional discourses, whereas it is an ordinary thing for someone who comes from a Mumbai kind of an area. Even students who I teach here invest and trade in stock markets. The impending risk depends upon the strategies and tools that you use to invest. Maybe in this context, to even scholars of humanities, I would say, if not for trading, we should look into the possibilities of investing, long-term investments using stocks, shares, and simple investment plan that is through mutual funds or so. I'm not promoting that, but unless until you're confident about your information on investing, you don't go by it, but then it is a very good source of accumulating or multiplying or preserving wealth. In a sense, I would say it is a democratic way of distributing capitalist wealth. It is my understanding of it. But then it is depending on the individual where we invest. If I find a company which is completely unethical, though it gives you multiple dividends, choosing not to invest there is a particular person's choice. So infrastructure mediates power and aesthetics. From the things that are around us plays a vital role in who we are. So the politics and poetics of infrastructure talks about infrastructure as a cultural object. Shannon Matten, code and clay, data and dirt. Right? What is code and clay, data and dirt? Focuses on how cities and their infrastructure are made of data and also physical materials like bricks, cement, and all that. Right? There is some data that goes inside. Every race, every people group, they have an algorithm. That's what Yuval Noah Harari talks about. Even it was mentioned in the Tamil Nadu Assembly a couple of weeks back that every race has a couple of months back, every race has an algorithm, and that algorithm influences our interaction with power, our interaction with anything that is sent down in terms of an order to the ordinary. So every city, every place has got both physical materials and also the inherent data, the algorithm, the way in which the people perceive things around us. So a city is a combination of the algorithmic data, which is integral to the people who are part of it, and also the physical material alike, that is the things that are required to construct a particular city. These are the key theorists who would be considered the proponents of new materialism and critical infrastructure studies. So why is this important? Why is it important to make new materialist and critical infrastructural reading at this point in time? Right, the rise of AI and digital infrastructure. Right, artificial intelligence is part of our transhumanist projects. Transhumanism aims at enhancing human experiences through biotechnology, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence, so that our lifespan, physical ability, and intellectual ability are enhanced. If we say that without artificial intelligence, we can enhance our intelligence on our own, which is a blatant lie. Even long back, we required books or other sources. Someone would study from a different source and would talk to us. Now that AI is making it personalized, right? Anyone can access any knowledge, provided the person has got good questioning skills. If you can prepare a prompt that is inquisitive, that can probe and create knowledge using the larger language models, that person is considered more knowledgeable today. And there are two sides to it. Number one, how we curate the prompts to access information, because the information that we access is accessible to everyone. So what gives me edge? How do I question to get the best possible result? And number two, what are all the ways to evaluate the received content? All that is generated by AI need not be true. It will also reflect the human bias of people who designed that larger language models. So in that sense, critical evaluation of AI generated content. Number one, the prompting. Number two, how we evaluate it critically. Checking for its authenticity. It's checking for the bias, checking for the purpose, and why certain messages are generated using a following pattern. What is wrong about it? So the knowledgeable of the future are those who can ask right questions, who can interact with the AI effectively, and also consume data not as passive observers, rather as critical detectives who would evaluate the data based on its source and also purpose, right? So the rise of AI has transformed literary analysis as well, and how we interact with the world. So such lenses that gives importance to material and also infrastructure plays a vital role in understanding literature, right? New materialism and critical infrastructure, they challenge anthropocentric approaches, which is a mark of civilization. As we see, everything around us has a right to, as we were listening to the talk yesterday, has a right to their own existence in this particular space. So we must shift our focus from an Anthropocene or anthropocentric view to a larger view which accommodates different entities in our context that includes non-human agencies and hidden system. So new materialist reading is used to discover non-human agency in our co-evolution, and hidden systems critically view what constitutes the co-evolution. How is that we evolve with machines? We understand that we evolve with machines is one, and what influences our evolution is the infrastructure that I interact with. If I do not have the infrastructure that I have now, I may not interact this way. Rather, I would interact in a different way based on the infrastructure that I have. So understanding that I co-evolve with this infrastructure is one aspect. Number two, what contributes to my co-evolution is the second aspect. These approaches help us critically engage with themes of power, control, and ethics of technology in literature. So by integrating these frameworks, we can address pressing questions about the role of literature in the post-human age. What do we mean by doing literature in the post-human age? We negotiate the discourses that blurs the boundaries between human and non-human. That's what we do in the post-human age. At this point in time, these two critical tools play a vital role in such pursuits. So, for example, new materialist reading of a literary text. This is from Frankenstein, a classical kind of old text. So a text excerpt is given. I had worked hard for nearly 2 years for the sole purpose of infusing life into an inanimate body. For this, I have deprived myself of rest and health. This is an excerpt from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So what is the new materialist approach here? Frankenstein's creature, the new creature that Frankenstein proposes to create, is a material assemblage of body parts with a form of agency. That's where I made a statement that laboratory as a space where human and non-human forces interact, right? That includes electricity, chemicals, and dead matter. In today's context, a laptop and a human being is a space where human and non-human forces interact, or mobile phones, or in the future sense, brain-computer interface can replace laptops and also mobile phones as well, right? As I told you, the mobile phones have reached a saturation. Last 10 years, it's almost the same. The next thing would be placing a mobile phone in our brains, right? And the thing is, it has its pros and cons, because the commodified world would infuse commodification, that is popularizing advertisements also more easily than the digital algorithms that we have in our mobile phones today, in our social networks or internet today. But then that's where the ethical concerns come into play. For what we are using technology? Is it for democratizing access or to give more power to someone? So if we criticize technology giving more power to someone, can we go back to the past? That is more cruel than this. There was no rationale. Technology rewards good work. Technology rewards good work, thanks to a system called Google Review or so. right? Before which the world was for cutthroat people. Now I'm not saying it's not for, it has not changed. It has changed now. But then the gap is being bridged. It is seemingly inclusive, but then it is completely not inclusive. Technology rationalizes our work. We can document our work. We can propagate what we have done with the masses as well. And it democratizes access. Say, for example, someone would criticize use of machines in music composition, that it would do away with the job of people who play instruments manually. But those who were playing instruments were only playing, but with technology being used, softwares being used for composition. Now anyone can become a composer. All those who are simply playing for different musicians. How many music composers we had 40 years ago? Now how many do we have? We may question the quality or the classical no purity aligned with the art, but then the quality of the art depends on how it is consumed. If the masses consume it, it is doing good. That's how we should perceive it, right? So how can we question technology for its commodification, yet not find a solution in our past, right? We may question technology for its follies, but do we have a solution in our past wherein there was no technology? Can we go back to what it was 8,000 years ago, right? So which aspect of technology do we agree with? Which aspect of technology we do not? If we ask such questions, it is subjective. I may agree with some part of technology. You may not agree with those, but you would agree with something else, depending on our convenience. So there is an ambivalence. So it is important that we acknowledge the fact that the non-human technological forces and other entities play a vital role in our human pursuits, but at the same time, the ethical concerns should also come into play, that it is democratized, affordable, and safe. People criticize technology. We all acknowledge that it has got immense potential, yet we criticize. I'm not finding fault with it because of the follies made by humans who use the technology, right? Or sometimes the laziness quotient. We use technology to find out something that we already know, just like how we use AI today. AI is something else. It is used to detect cancers well in advance, 5 years before they could come. At the same time, cancer is also a commodity. It is a business model, kind of, if I can make that statement, right? Instead of democratizing cancer treatment, there is a democratized accessibility to the disease called cancer, which is the blatant reality. Some study says 1 in every 4 Indians would get cancer in the next 10 years, right? We must contest such things, but can we find solutions for cancer 100 years ago, right? Or maybe can we say that it is a new phenomenon? We do not know. The life expectancy has increased. People died of some stomach pain 200 years ago at the age of 20, 25, could be a cancer. We do not know, right? So the line is so thin. We do not know who is causing damage to whom, right? So our discussions should not be something which says technology is completely bad. Rather, we should find ways how it is used for not so good things, because we don't have a solution going backwards, right? So the creature's existence challenges the boundaries between life and death, human and non-human. Another thing, how technology redefines the idea of death, right? Earlier, doctors used to say out of old age someone is dying. Rather, today in the death certificates, we don't find such statements. Rather, we say due to respiratory failure or heart failure. Death is viewed as a technological repair, and we are postponing death. We are defeating death by medical interventions, right? Unlike any other time that we had. Though people talk about immortality in theory, right? We have already defeated or postponed death. Death as a natural phenomenon is contested with the technological intervention, right? Life and death is now influenced by technology. Even life, the birth, the different ways in which people give birth, right, is influenced by technology, suggesting a more entangled relationship between biological matter and human intent. So this is new romancer, right? Wherein you find the sky above the port was the color television tuned to a dead channel. This is the excerpt I have taken. Focus on the hidden infrastructure of cyberspaces and physical networks. Cyberspace as an infrastructure that mediates human interaction with technology. The algorithms that I was talking about. You want to purchase something, you search for it. The next 2 days, your social media network is confined to that search alone. Say, for example, you want a running shoe. The next 2 days in your YouTube channels, you find fitness trainers coming in, advertisements of shoes coming in. All that are embedded in the algorithms. So we interact with those cyberspaces, right? Earlier it was color, the television, how it was able to influence social change for the good and the bad. We always look at the not so good side of things when it comes to technology. We are so critical of technology, but we are not so critical of the previous belief systems we had, right? There is an Oxford study stating that after the state government of Tamil Nadu distributing color televisions in the state, probably in 2006 or 7, the number of violence, domestic violence against women has considerably gone down, significantly gone down, because there was awareness. There was a kind of discourse on what is domestic violence. There was an idea that people can go to police station, coupled with the later government which made all women police stations from 2011. These two worked in tandem, that domestic violences against women, especially in that particular state, has gone down after the introduction of television in all households. So we have a very skewed perception of technology, quick to pinpoint on its adversities. Rather, the democratization it has done is unimaginable. It is the level playing ground, yet there are certain things that we should look into, which are influenced by crony capitalism, right? So the use of the word dead channel. What is a dead? Dead is usually something which is associated with a living entity, whereas a technological invention, television, when there is no program on it and there is no signal, when we use a phrase dead channel, it inherently means that we attribute life to it. We attribute life to it. Such utterances mean that we attribute life to it. They have life on its own, right? The boundaries being blurred again. The dead channel sky is a metaphor for the pervasive yet invisible networks that govern daily life in the AI age, suggesting an interplay between human cognition and the technological infrastructure. So this one, the life cycle of software objects. It's a very contemporary text. It was published in 2010. This except we aren't looking for super intelligent employees. We are looking for super intelligent products. You are offering us the former, and I cannot blame you. No one can spend as many years as you have teaching a digient and still think of it as a product, right? A digient is a term that is used in this text, which is a combination of digital machine and a human. It's a kind of a new creature, right? So people do not want employees, they want products, right? And if we are critical of that idea, at the end of the day, for our livelihood, we also need products. It is an utilitarian perspective, but it goes on to a very worse extent. when the human aspect of an individual is not taken into consideration, because everything is considered a product, right? So if for me not to be considered as a product by the other, which is inevitable, I should enhance myself. If I do not add any value to the ecosystem, to people around, what happens to my existence? We should not look down upon someone because they are less utility oriented. Is an ethical concern. That's for me. I may not look down upon others because they do not contribute more to society. Can I expect the same from others? So how am I a person and also as a product? How am I doing good as a person to people around, and how am I doing good as a product for the betterment of society, right? That depends on technological intervention, because knowledge, see, we may talk about the ethical concerns of AI. All said and done, the Nobel Prize of 2024 is almost given to AI. The invention that the scientists made is not possible without AI intervention. So there we become a kind of an infused products and also a persona. How do we navigate between being a person and a product, right? How do we navigate between possessing emotional intelligence and also technical dexterity, right? So finally, the difference is, taking this particular except into consideration, I've made a table that gives you how a new materialist reading is done and a critical infrastructure reading is done on this particular except. Focuses on Digient as an active agential entity that challenge its status as a product. Because Digient is a combination of human and machine, so it cannot be considered only as a product. This questions the commodified narrative of considering every individual as a product alone, right? The Digient resists the way in which the capitalist economy considered that as an employee as a product alone. Rather, the balance is important. How do we strike a balance between the person and the persona and the product? So focuses on the active agential entity that challenges its status as a product, whereas critical infrastructure focuses on the technological and ideological systems that sustain the Digient. So if you go back to one of my points that I made earlier, that comes as the second one as well, new materialist reading explores this co-evolution. How a particular entity is a combination of human and non-human existence, and critical infrastructure analyzes the underlying infrastructure that constructs that co-evolution. The first one is exploring the co-evolution. Second one is deconstructing the co-evolution, because I do not evolve in the same way like someone who is brought up in the first world, because their interaction with the technology ensures a different kind of evolution, whereas my limited interaction with the technology in the first 20-30 years of my life evolves me in a different way. So understanding that there is a co-evolution with citing examples is a new materialist reading, whereas how that co-evolution is different from one person to other or one entity to other, depending on the underlying infrastructure, the servers, the algorithms, the labor, the way in which I work is different, or the way in which the other has put in some labor to acquire knowledge is different, or the gadgets that I have. So infrastructure reads the underlying infrastructure that enables this co-evolution, whereas new materialist reading explores the co-evolution per se. So the third point, questions, this is where the literary narrative sets in. New materialist reading questions the ethics of treating intelligent agential entities as commodities, right? And it means, what are the ethical concerns of viewing human and the machine together? Because we have human emotions, but we are asked to work like machines, right? Can we deny that? Right. We say that we have collegiality, we work as a group. What if I am dead and gone today? The condolence template is ready. Tomorrow there will be a condolence, and next week there will be some other person replacing me, gone. Who is at lost? Personally, the individual and people around. Right. But the outcome, we are expected to work in a robotic fashion. And the catch here is, if we do not work that way, there is no life. If we do not work that way, there is no life. So whether it's life, livelihood, or without livelihood, what is life? It's like we work for food, but sometimes we skip food for work. Right? So how to strike a balance? The concerns are, 100 years ago, people thought with the advancement of technology, people would work only 15 hours per week, but that has not happened. No, we are still working 40, 50 hours, and people like Narayana Murthy say we should work 70 hours or so. That's the problem with crony capitalism. For them, people who work for them and they monitor it, that is also considered as their work hour. Or when they travel in a posh car, they check the communication, pass on messages. That is considered as their work hour. But for an ordinary worker who's stuck in traffic, driving his own vehicle or a bike, those hours cannot be considered as work hour. Or someone going and waiting in front of the boss's cabin to get signatures. How do you account those hours as work hour? So technology should be used to make human life easy. But the landlordish mentality we have, right? The kind of mentality that wants power to be exerted on people uses technology to make life more difficult, right? In the real sense, technology should have made our life easy. It is. But on the other hand, the human pursuit for ruthless, naked self-interest in terms of accumulating power, amassing wealth. Technology is used to enslave people further. It's a human instinct. This has been the case with the inception or with the beginning of days. So we cannot blame technology for it, right? Google Meet or an online meet is something that is inevitable at some point in time. Just because it is available, can I schedule a meeting with my colleagues 8 p.m. in the evening? Just because it is available. No, that's where we go wrong. These are the things that we should contest, criticize. No, we work like products, but we are humans. And can we be completely human? No. That's where the ambivalence is. Right? So questions the ethics of treating intelligent agential entities that includes humans as commodities. Critical infrastructure critiques the capitalist framing of AI systems as products of profit. AI can be used for eradicating poverty at a large scale. Rather, we use it for commercial businesses, chatbots that call us and say, buy this product, buy this particular loan or whatsoever. So how infrastructure, we understand that infrastructure shapes reality, but critical infrastructure reading critiques how capitalist framing of infrastructure, how infrastructure is created only to support crony capitalism. Crony capitalism meaning the government and capitalists come together, they make laws or policies which would benefit each other, right? So both cases, we understand the importance of non-human agencies that are amalgamated with us and the infrastructure in our life choices. But the critiquing here is how it is used by people, whether it is used for empowering or enslaving, because it is in our cultural cue. We are empowered to empower others. Rather, we see empowerment as a tool to enslave others. Maybe I am enslaved today, but when I grow up the ladder, I would be growing up only to enslave others. Leave alone shifting the sentiments to non-human entities. Do we have sentiments for our own human people around us? Around us? No. If you come to cities like Bangalore or maybe in your own places, in the evenings you find a scene wherein the housekeeping staff or the support staff leaving the residential apartments, their bags are being frisked. They are treated as potential thieves because they are singled out as potential thieves based on their socio-economic conditions, based on the job that they do, as if the thieves are found only among ordinary people. The biggest thieves of society are scout free. They travel business class, right? But such things, even for upper middle class salaried, that visual do not disturb us. We should be disturbed by that. How do we feel when we are treated that way in our workspaces? We may say, oh, in airports and malls, all are frisked. The context differs. In an airport or mall, everyone is frisked, almost everyone. Whereas in such places, only the menial staff, the housekeeping staff, the cleaning staff, domestic helps, they are frisked. There are many people who access such premises. All others are not frisked. Only this. So, in the age of technology, we may criticize CCTV for its privacy infringement, but it is good. It ensures transparency at many places, right? So, in this age, do we really need to stop someone and frisk their bags before they leave out of their workspace? It is not something that they accept this as a norm. They are unconscious of it. For their livelihood, they become products there, but they are people, right? For their livelihood, they come back to the same place where there is no dignity for them. The way in which we speak to them in our workplaces, how do we speak to our administrators, and how do we speak to our ordinary people around us? Our body language changes, right? The way in which we bend or stand straight changes, the tone changes, right? We may say that I do charity, right? What is charity? We always need someone below us so that we do occasional help and say we are above them. That's not the case. How many times we have heard people saying Masons are making lot of money, they are coming in two-wheelers. Earlier they would come only in buses or by walk. That shows our inherent hate towards people in our immediate quarters coming up in life. Imagine living in a apartment wherein our domestic help buys an apartment in the same floor. If we are not disturbed, we are progressive. If we are disturbed, we are sick, right? Because there we see them as products. They should eternally do work for you and you pay them. That's how our bosses treat us. So, enslaved people trying to enslave others. Only when we start empowering from the bottom, we get empowered, right? What if the people who work under me, in the construction work or so, if they become richer than me, how do I accept it? Immediate quarters, somewhere we hear stories, auto driver's son become IAS, we are happy. But what if the son is some auto driver's son who is closer to us, and our own children not performing better? How do we feel, right? So there we treat them as products, and no wonder we are treated as products in our workspaces. So the ethical questioning is, the amalgamation should be treated with respect, right? It's not good to glorify someone just because they are come from a privileged socio-economic standards, or look down upon someone just because they come from a less privileged conditions. So the balance is the key, right? All of us have a role to play in this society, and what we are is influenced by the interactions with non-human entities and the infrastructure, which someone has got a better infrastructure someone has not got, that doesn't mean that we should demean or glorify people based on what they possess, right? So new materialist reading, in the broader sense, questions the ethics of treating intelligent agential entities as commodities, and infrastructural reading critiques the capitalist framing of AI systems that would benefit themselves, right, rather than democratizing technology, democratizing access to health care, right? Because we will not have a solution backwards. We cannot see a golden age in the past. We should envision a golden age in the future, right? If we are against infusing technology within human conditions, saying it is said in the scripture that it is wrong, there are internet of medical things. I have students with sugar complaint at the very young age, right, who have a tracker fixed to their body, where parents would monitor it, right, whether their sugar levels are going down or it's stable. They would call them and say, go have some food and things of that kind. Or someone, a student, 20-year-old, had heart attack and died. If you say that it is because of lifestyle, such deaths were there 200 years ago as well, 100 years ago as well. The life expectancy was only 3600 years ago. Right now it's around 65 or 67 in the Indian context, and Western countries, the socialist countries in Scandinavia, the average lifespan is crossing 90 as well. So someone dies of heart attack in a place where he was living alone, and people were saying, if it is written for him, if it was his fate, who can change it? This was a discourse from academicians. And I was quiet, and someone asked me, I said, as academicians, we should not speak this way. There are internet of medical things, sensors, which can monitor heart rate, and you can treat people remotely as well, right? Doctors from a different place can inject quick medicines using the internet of medical things, right? We should be talking about how to democratize access to this, how to ensure ethical access to these gadgets now that it is available for the rich or the super rich for that matter. Because if someone gets fever, do we say that it is the person's fate, let him die? No, we go to the doctor, right? Same way, there is a treatment for each and everything that we encounter. Only thing, it is not accessible. That's what we should be talking about. So what these frameworks mean, we have come to the last part. Probably I'll complete in 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll take your questions. What these frameworks mean to the Indian literary context. Yeah, like any other context, we have the entanglement of materiality, non-human agency, and human lives. Critical infrastructure studies can examine colonial legacies and modern infrastructural systems, railways, urban slums, IT hubs, right? The spaces per se. We have different ethical viewpoints and ethical standards for different places. The society where I live in has got more than 1,000 houses, which celebrates festivals, right? Religious festivals with a lot of lights, sound, dance, and stuff. But the next week, in the nearby locality, the suburban localized space, they have their own deity brought to their houses. Their local deities are brought to their houses. Throughout the night, they sing bhajans. And that is disturbing this society. Whereas they were disturbing the others 2 months ago. And it's not of different religions. That's something that we should take into consideration. Both practice the same religion, but one is an established deity, another is a folk deity of the ordinary people, of the marginalized people. So this hypocrisy should be busted. If you value Indian culture or tradition important as something which is important, you follow it. And whereas those traditions are also about the vibe, the vehicle that carries the idol of the deity comes behind. Whereas there is a vehicle full of lights, DJ, that's where people surround and dance. Festival is for vibing. It's for the rich. to spend money, right? Whereas if you are spending creating nuisance, the same religious practice, 2 weeks later, the nearby locality, when people sing bhajans, that looks crude to you, that looks uncivilized to you. And you find in WhatsApp, they say, we have elderly people, our children have board exams, these people are creating nuisance, someone go and stop them, lodge a complaint. What were you doing 2 weeks ago? Right. So the places wherein the urban and rural intersect, we force our rules on the others, our convenience on the others, right? So therein, infrastructure studies plays a vital role, especially in the Indian context. Because if you ask me, there is no such control in the Western world. No, Western world has got a control as well. The difference is Indian control is more of a cultural control and Western control is more of a civic control. Civic control, when I say traffic rules, very rigid. What you can do on a particular road, what you cannot. Here we have moral codes, not civic codes. One example is when I used to do squad duty in the floors. Usually, there are two sets of students. One group, they have exams for 2 hours. Other group, they have 3 hours. When the 2 hours exam is done, when that mass leaves, they create a lot of noise. They don't go out. They come out of the class, do postmortem of their exams and all that with less civic sense, because that comes from our upbringing. I wrote an exam. How did I write? I need to discuss. Unmindful, the ethics of others is missing. Unmindful of the fact that there are still people who are writing. It does not require someone to tell them to move fast in a Western context. Whereas we are strong on cultural control. Say, for example, in the dining table, in the Indian context, food is God. Whereas in the Western context, the other sitting on the table is God. How do you treat the other? How do you maintain the table etiquettes? But what is important is how do we strike a balance between the two, right? If we are hard on moral control and we lose out on civic control, we lose out on well-being, healthcare, and standard of life. And if we are hard on civic control and we do not have an ethical coordination with the people, a community feel, we lose out on emotional aspects of life. Both are the pros and cons of different kinds of control. So how do we balance both? Are we hell-bent on civic control or cultural control? Right. So such things are found in spaces where slums and towns intersect. That requires a critical infrastructural reading. New materialism aligns with indigenous philosophies where nature and objects are seen as active and sacred. So the idea of sacred, can we contest the idea of sacred? If there is something sacred, one thing we understand is there is no equality. Right? We can consider something sacred, then we accept there is no equality in the world. Right? There is no equality. But then the very thought that there is no equality stops us from thinking in ways that would lead us to equality. So how do we contest the idea of sacred? Anything that is attributed with holiness does not practice or preach equality. So indigenous philosophies that interact with nature, how egalitarian they are, how it gives importance to both human and non-human entities alike, to be discussed in the Indian context. These frameworks can help us interrogate caste, urbanization, environmental degradation, and digital inequality, the digital divide, they say, in the Indian context. We can use these texts. So one example from Hungry Tide, where Sundarbans emerge as a vibrant agential entity. The lives, the characters' decisions are influenced by non-human forces like tides, mangroves, mangrove forests, the tigers, and they are not passive. They actively challenge human dominance. So focus on how colonial and post-colonial resource extraction conservation systems affect the Sundarbans ecosystem. Examine hidden infrastructure, wildlife policies, fishing industries that marginalize local communities like the fisher folk and indigenous people group. Right? The idea of a fisher folk that we have is very crude. I'm talking about the larger populace. We see the way in which we interact with calamities, which is quite, I've heard people saying, weather report says there is a cyclone, and why do fisher folk go into the sea when we hear about loss of life? But the thing is, they are in the sea for the past 1 week or so, or 10 days. How would they know that there is a cyclone? It's deep sea fishing. People who know it would know. They are there for a longer time, right? It shows our insensitivity to others, right? So, how non-human forces influence human existence in this particular novel. So, a new materialist reading and the differences in non-human forces, infrastructure, how they influence social change. That is a critical infrastructure reading, which is possible with the Hungry Tide. White Tiger, here the road, he being a taxi driver, the road emerges as a living dynamic entity, right? Connectivity and to an extent, the road connectivity that we have in our part of the country and the democratization of public transport takes people from different places to other. It ensures upward social mobility. A bus stopping in a village is important to ensure upward social mobility. There are some films on that as well, right? The road emerges as a living dynamic entity, symbolizing the chaotic entanglement of classes, power and survival. It connects disparate worlds. It is a juxtaposition of opposites, roads. In the Indian context especially, you find a 2 crore car and also someone who cannot afford any of this walk as migrant laborers from one state to the another in the same national highway, right? So in a country which is diverse in terms of socioeconomic statuses, classes, these readings help us to understand non-human entities as the driving force of human existence. The road represents India's infrastructural divide, exposing the systems that sustain wealth for the elite while marginalizing people with low incomes, right? Our transport systems, how democratic they are, right? The amount of money that we spend on increasing the infrastructure, I can afford it, right? Maybe the income band that we come with, most of the teachers working in the government sector or in deemed universities, we come at least within the first 15% of India if we make more than 50,000 per month, right? First 15%, we may afford a Vande Bharat, saying that there is an infrastructural change. How many new general compartments are we adding in our normal trains, right? Because that transports the masses. Can we travel in such compartments one day, the elites? We need to introspect. So is it growth, inflammation of one part of the body, or proportional growth, right? Does roads still represent infrastructural divide, right? Such questions can be asked. Why? Because the difference between the highest per capita income in a state and the lowest per capita income in a state is vast in a country like India, whereas in other growing nations, it's almost similar, right? Focus on the socio-political systems of urban planning, labor exploitation, and transportation networks that perpetuate inequality, right? Okay, this one on domestic violence, how the house walls and fans are not passive objects. They observe and reflect the violence that's being discussed in this particular novel. So these objects emphasize the entanglement of domestic spaces with the lived experience of abuse and control. How domestic spaces influence on abuse and control. If it is a more democratic space, will it be possible? Right? what makes someone exert control over the other. The critical infrastructural reading, the house functions as an infrastructure of control, isolating the protagonist and enabling the abuser to enforce his power. Right? The infrastructure provides a position, a conducive position for the enforcer to exert his power. So how do we contest that infrastructure? Focus on how societal systems are embedded in domestic infrastructure, perpetuating gender-based violence. Even today, when states announce free buses to women, right? The elite criticism is simply people are going and coming. How long will they go simply, right? These are such insensitive comments, right? Only when we come out of our comfort zones, even simply only when people come out and go, they explore what is world and they become self-reliant and economically self-sufficient. That mobility should be ensured. But our cultural, thought that why would they roam around simply, that thought stops us from thinking from a wider perspective, right? So how social structures, the domestic infrastructures perpetuate gender-based violence, caste-based violence, caste-based differences, class-based differences can be analyzed in the Indian context. So these are the ways in which new materialism and CI, critical infrastructure frameworks, can be used in the Indian context to contest nature, contest what is sacred in nature, highlight the texts that reflect these beliefs, how these beliefs inform our existence, apply to caste and social systems, and then examine the post-colonial and globalization networks in terms of industrialization. All said and done, IT is the source for upward social mobility in India. No other domain ensures that kind of mobility, quick mobility. With one engineering degree, democratization of engineering degree, one can become an IT personnel and quickly the face of the family changes. But they should be also aware of how they save their money, invest their money. Those things the capital world will not teach them. It will make them IT professionals, but it will not ensure a wise spending of money. That depends on the individual. That's where we strike a balance between being a product and a person. So how to enhance new materialist and critical infrastructure reading? Shift focus from characters to objects around us, right? What is the role of this little object that I carry in my thought process? Pay attention to invisible infrastructure, the algorithms. Why is that I encounter certain memes quite often? Why is that I get only good news about a particular political leader? Am I living in that kind of an echo chamber? Who is benefited of this narrative? Talk to the text, right? Talk to whatever objects that come on your way. Truth in the Age of Social Media by Girish Balachandran is about how we interact with these texts to find not only the truth, but also the purpose. Something can be true, but the purpose is to, take your economical resources. Analyze the entanglement between humans and non-humans. Consider the aesthetics of infrastructure as a source of power, control, and invisibility. So use interdisciplinary approaches, technological studies. If humanity is not aligning with STEM, we may find less relevance in the future. Our humanity, the questions that we ask about the technology should be integrated with the technological studies. Or else we would be in isolation making such questions, which would have no impact on technological invention and flourishing. Encourage our students to think beyond the human, shifting our empathy towards first the other humans around and the other entities around as well, one after the other. Utilize contemporary texts, foster discussions on the materiality in the AI age and how digital systems and artificial intelligence reshape human existence and cultural production. So finally, new materialism and critical infrastructure studies provide fresh lenses for literary analysis in the AI age, to summarize, because we can uncover new insights, even using classical and contemporary texts, focusing on materials agency, the non-human entities agency in our life pursuits, and hidden infrastructure. What is the role of infrastructure in constructing the co-evolution, co-construction? So these approaches encourage a kind of a holistic understanding of literature's relationship with non-human and technological forces that shape our world. So we have some 15 minutes to take your questions. Yes. The floor is open for questions. Okay. So I started with a statement that there is nothing that is uninfluenced by technology, so that it should be studied, criticized, contested with all seriousness, because technology reshapes or shapes our existence in this world, our cultural thought, beliefs, whatever it is not uninfluenced by technology. That's the proposition I made. If you have anything to contest, please make your insights on that note. Right. And at the same time, we spoke about how there is a co-evolution. New materialism makes us understand there is a co-evolution, but at the same time, critical infrastructure deconstructs how that co-evolution is possible through the infrastructures that we interact with, how it is different for people based on socioeconomic conditions. So that has to be contested. We don't have a problem with technology influencing us to make our life better, but how far it is accessible, ethical, and affordable is to be discussed as literary discussions. Questions, please. So does it mean that all of us agree with the idea that technology shapes our cultural interactions? Is there anything in culture that is uninfluenced by technology? Any aspect? If anyone can think of anything, you can share it here so that we can think aloud on it. I'm sorry for the initial delay as well. I had to arrange my classes and settle down. Organizers?
Yes, sir. Participants, is there any question? If you want to ask any question, you can ask regarding the session.
Is folk culture unaffected by technology, particularly in India? So thank you. That's an insight, the folk culture, the culture of the masses, is it not, you're asking whether it is unaffected by technology. So here, the idea of technology is important. What is technology? I made a statement that technology is not only in the mobile phones. So in the tools that they use, there is a scientific progress, right? The tools that is used in practicing a particular folk ritual, right? That is an outcome of the technology of that landscape. So the idea is accessibility to that technology ensured that folk culture to be in that way, right? So for that particular folk culture to exist in isolation, it is not possible without the technological interventions and scientific community. Maybe that technology is primitive for us, right? cultural rituals for that matter, right? For example, 10 years ago, when I went to a particular wedding, wherein we had to wait for a longer time for the bride to come after the groom's arrival, because the same car which dropped the groom went to bring back the bride. We were told that it is a cultural ritual which is kind of common in this part of the world, this part of the country. But later we understood that that phenomenon is because when they shifted from walking to a car, maybe learning from the colonial masters, there was only one car affordable or available at that particular town. So the car which drops the groom goes back and brings the bride. That becomes a cultural ritual, right? But then it is influenced by technology of that time. Only thing, it resists changing. So even for folk cultures to flourish, they should not resist the new technologies available, because at what level they are practicing their culture now is also influenced by some technological interventions, some point of their lives, maybe 100 years ago, 50 years ago, whatsoever. So openness to technology helps us in flourishing. So the idea of technology is something that we need to understand. It's not only the mobile phones, even a small tool that we use to do some street tricks, that involves technology, which means that involves an scientific inquiry. To what extent science fiction incorporates new materialism? Yes, science fiction is the source, corpus, literary corpus in which new materialism can be used as a tool to read. Let's say, for example, A Time Machine by H.G. Wells, or Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, or contemporary text. No, they all include the human and non-human agents, right, as part of their narrative. So to trace the co-evolution of human and non-human agency, science fictions offer a very good corpus to read from a new materialist perspective. How to overcome the fear of technology, right? To understand that we are nothing without technology will give us the courage to embrace technology, right? So I often say that, the most safest travel in the world, anyone can say that, the most safest mode of travel is airway, because of the less frequency of accidents. One in some 6 million, flights meet with an accident, which makes it the most safest mode of travel. But there are people, including my mother, who is a retired professor, who is afraid of air travel. But that's the most safest travel that humans have encountered as of now. Because why? There are more questions. The moment we understand that it can be dangerous if there is some malfunction, we ask more questions. An air accident somewhere, kindles a lot of questions. Why did it happen? Where did the system flawed? So such questions makes it more efficient. So anything that we interact with, when we ask more questions, that makes it more efficient, right? So the fear of technology can be encountered with the thought that we are nothing without it. What technology which our forefathers were afraid of, we are using it, right? In Madurai TVS's office, you find a photo of an ordinary person without shirt. That's because he was the first person to board the TVS bus. The first TVS bus, when it came to the Madurai marketplace, people were afraid of its noise, the smoke and everything. No one boarded it. The first person who boarded it became an icon, because it takes a lot of courage to accept new technology. That's an interesting question. But then the very thought that we are nothing without technology will make us embrace it. We are afraid of the consequences. See, even today, after talking all this, I go home. On the way, if I meet with an accident and I am done, I want my students or people listening to me not to say that he was talking about technology and he is killed by technology. No, there are several parameters to it. whether I was negligent in my driving, there was some other who was negligent. We pay a lot of tax, yet the roads are not good. The traffic is not regulated. There are so many issues that we should address. Rather, we simply say his time was not good. He spoke against certain things, so he got the punishment. They are simplistic, reasons for things that we cannot sit and write a book on. But there are so many other parameters which influence that particular act, not my discourse, right? So we should be aware of the fact that we are nothing without scientific interventions. We are nothing without scientific pursuits. That would give us the courage to embrace new technology. So how will be research domain of AI, which is come as a tool for future endeavors? Is it about all applicable sources of language and literature? Professor Sundar, can you please elaborate on it, or probably if it is a Sundar's question, he is my good friend and junior, I can elaborate on it in a phone call also, because I am not able to understand what he means at this point in time. How will be a research domain of AI, which is come as a tool of for future endeavors? About all of it. Is it applicable to all language and literature? Oh, AI is applicable to everything in life. It is to make human life easy, but there are impending dangers as well. What if machines take control and all that is there? That's where our ethical discourses, but we cannot avoid it. That's if we are avoiding it, people using it will grow up in the social ladder faster than us. We will be lagging behind. That has happened to every invention of science. By the time we resist and we are forced to accept it, technology goes to a different level. Those who used it will go to a different level. We'll be complaining about it. By the time we are forced to use it, that would be outdated. That's so it applies to all fields. It applies to all fields. Okay. So 12:30, I have a class. So I may leave now. Any other questions people can write to me. I put my, maybe now it would be convincing, but if you reflect on it, you may have certain questions to contest with. You can write to me as well. So this is my email ID. You can write to me as well. Thank you. Thank you for being a good audience. Thank you again to the organizers. I'm sorry again for the initial hiccups we had. Ma'am, can I leave? I have a class at 12:30.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your insightful and inspiring address. Thank you so much, sir. And we have come to the end of today's program. We have successfully completed the second FDP. Through the cooperation of all who have taken part in today's program, to express our gratitude and the successful completion of the second day FDP, I would like to invite Dr. P. Sophia Persis, Assistant Professor of English, to deliver the thanks.
Remembering our Lord God Almighty, whose mercy and grace led us all the way, I thank today's resourceful person, Dr. Jehoson Jiresh. He showed us how digital humanities has significantly impacted the way literary scholars conduct their research. With the help of advanced digital tools and techniques, researchers can now delve deeper into literary text and transcend traditional boundaries. The very topic, new materiality and infrastructure as critical tools for the AI age literary analysis, led us to sit erect and listen to you, sir. Your introduction to new materialism and how they shape culture, society, and literature is excellently explained through key theorists for new materialism, which insists that technology helps human and non-human forces to interact. Sir, we are enthralled by the examples you gave for capitalist framing of AI systems as products for profit shaped by exploitative infrastructures. Examples from literary reading help us to digest the fact that house, walls, and fan are not passive objects. Finally, I thank all staff and scholars who gather here with thirst for knowledge. I also thank our secretary, principal, convener, coordinators, and organizing secretaries for having arranged eminent personalities to address us all these 7 days. Thank you once again, Dr. Jehoson Jiresh, for your breakthrough lecture. Thank you.
Thank you all. With this note, we conclude today's session. Thank you all for your active participation. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow for another enriching day of learning and discussion. Thank you so much.